I'm going to be talking about how we include socially vulnerable populations and underserved communities in our planning on climate change, and why it's important to do so, how we can get some co-benefits from the projects that we're talking about and that you've heard so far today. First, a little bit about vulnerability. We often think of vulnerability in terms of location. If someone lives in an area prone to floods or to storms, but there are other factors as well. Okay, thank you. We know, for example, from the, is that okay? All right. We know, for example, from Hurricane Katrina, that folks who are economically insecure have challenges in disasters as well, with being able to evacuate, with being able to repair or damage their homes, repair or recover from a disaster. We know that folks who have health issues tend to have less mobility, may need more care, medications, and we know that access to information and participation is also key, because information allows you to make choices about your location and to be able to advocate for your needs. So focusing on resiliency is important, because when we have resilient people, we can recover from a disaster more quickly. We can help people to be able to help their communities, and people can be able to make informed decisions about their choices and their locations. So I'm going to give two examples of how these principles can be integrated in some of the planning that we're talking about. Like Dr. Gassman mentioned with some of the energy efficiency programs like PACE. There's another program in St. Lucie that's a similar model, although it doesn't use the property assessment mechanism, but uses a revolving loan fund. So it's got a pool of money that was seeded by a stimulus grant, the Economic Efficiency and Conservation Block Grants, to start this loan program. And one of the goals was directly to serve underserved communities. So they've been able to make 178 loans so far, and 55% of them have gone to low and moderate income households. They're also setting themselves up so that banks who need to get Community Reinvestment Act credits can lend to this pool of money as well. So it's, again, helping to finance, but targeting those specifically to underserved communities. There's another, oh, I'm sorry, this is not the same format. The next one is Clean Energy Works Oregon. So there's another program out in Oregon that uses the same revolving loan fund model, but attaches a community workforce agreement. And that means they've set goals for including economically disadvantaged communities in the work that goes into these projects. So that 30% of the work hours in those projects go to economically disadvantaged communities, and 20% of the business contracts do as well. There's also wage standards and health coverage standards, so that the jobs created are good quality jobs. They've done 2,000 projects so far, created 200 jobs. And this is unique because we often get excited about the potential for green jobs, but we're not often very specific about how those jobs get created, how the training happens, how the partnerships happen with different workforce development agencies. And this is really important because with climate change, a lot of what we're talking about can seem really scary in the future, and people need to be able to see themselves in the future. And for example, projects like the Keystone Pipeline, if that gets approved, it's going to be because of jobs. Because construction jobs are good paying jobs, because jobs in refineries in Louisiana are an important part of the economy and the culture. And so we really cannot underestimate the importance of jobs and planning for jobs in these projects. The second example is from transportation. So Obi mentioned earlier the flooding that happens on Miami Beach, which is where I happen to live as well, and the vulnerability of Miami Beach. And so one of the ironies is that Miami Beach is actually a pretty sustainable community. We're the 10th in the nation for walking to work and the 11th in the nation for biking to work. And why is that? It's because it's got a compact urban design. The community, the South Beach and North Beach, were designed for walking originally in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And through historic preservation efforts, they've been able to preserve that residential character and at the same time reinvigorate the tourism industry. So you can see that 53% of the people who are walking to work are working in accommodation and food service. They're working in those tourism industry jobs. Well, how can they afford to live on Miami Beach? There's some market housing on Miami Beach. It's less quality. You often have many people cramped in one space. There are also organizations like the Miami Beach Community Development Corporation, which have taken a historic preservation approach to preserve those buildings and making them usable for affordable housing, which they provide to workforce and to elderly. So the presence of that affordable housing on Miami Beach in proximity to those jobs directly takes cars off the streets, which reduces emissions and reduces traffic as well, which we can all appreciate. And so finally, to sum up, some things that we can think about and keep in mind as we go forward with the planning, including community workforce programs in infrastructure projects, energy efficiency particularly, but there's other projects as well. Making sure that programs are targeted to serve low and moderate income households as well, and including affordable housing and urban redevelopment projects, particularly in areas slated for higher density. And a lot of this can be framed as sort of a preventive model, reducing vulnerability before a disaster happens and getting co-benefits from some of the projects that are planning to go forward. So thank you, I look forward to further conversation.